Milo Cartwright had once believed the weirdest thing he'd ever see on campus was a sophomore riding a unicycle while playing the bagpipes. That belief shattered on a Tuesday morning at precisely 9:07 a.m., when a blue-skinned woman in a slate-gray uniform stepped out of the administration building and into the spring sunlight like some celestial diplomat who'd taken a wrong turn into a liberal arts college. She didn't just walk. She arrived. Every line of her posture was upright, calculated. Her eyes, silver and still as mercury, scanned the quad like she was assessing it for structural integrity. In one hand she held a slim data tablet that glowed with softly pulsing glyphs. In the other, a paper map of the campus, which she studied as if deciphering an ancient language. Her expression didn't flicker. "Please tell me I'm still asleep," Milo muttered, shielding his eyes with one hand. "Or hallucinating. I knew that dining hall chicken looked suspicious last night." Beside him, his roommate Jay snorted. "Nah, man. That's the IN student Valira. Exchange program. She's your problem, remember?" "Right." Milo had volunteered, okay, Jay had volunteered him, to help Earth's first interspecies student adapt to life among caffeinated undergrads and late capitalism. At the time, he'd imagined a friendly alien who liked board games and asked awkward questions about Netflix. Instead, he got her. Valira spotted him. Or rather, she zeroed in on him like a hawk on prey. She strode over without hesitation, her boots clicking against the pavement with military precision. "You are Milo Cartwright," she stated. Not asked. Stated. "Guilty," he said, sticking out a hand. "And you must be Valira. Welcome to Earth. We have pizza, existential dread, and overpriced tuition." She stared at his hand. "Your limb is extended. Is this an aggressive gesture?" No, it's a handshake. A greeting," he tried not to laugh. "It's how humans say hello without using words or lasers." She regarded his fingers, then cautiously clasped his hand like she expected it to explode. Her skin was cool, faintly luminous with an odd texture, like silk wrapped around stone. "I see. Ritualized contact. Curious." Milo grinned. "That's humanity for you. We love making things complicated." They began walking across the quad, Milo guiding her past students sunbathing on the lawn and two frat guys building a beer pyramid. Valira observed everything with the detached interest of a field scientist cataloging native fauna. "I've reviewed 12 hours of cultural media in preparation for this integration," she said. "Your species prioritizes social bonding, consumption of carbonated beverages, and mating displays disguised as dance." Milo nearly tripped over a pigeon. What videos were you watching exactly?" "Selected clips from a documentary called Spring Break Miami Invasion." He coughed. "Okay. Maybe avoid that one for academic purposes." She nodded solemnly. "Understood." When they reached the student center, she paused by a vending machine, inspecting it like an alien artifact. "Why does one require currency to access sugar blocks?" "Capitalism," Milo said, deadpan. "And dental insurance." She tilted her head. "Fascinating. Your species monetizes decay." That actually made him laugh. "You're going to do fine here, Valira." As they approached the tutoring room, she stopped, turning to him with a frown. Her silver gaze held his, intense and unblinking. "Milo, may I ask a question before we begin?" "Sure." Shoot, Milo Cartwright had seen his fair share of strange sights on campus. A guy walking a ferret on a leash. A professor who wore chain mail on exam days for spiritual focus. But nothing quite compared to Valira standing stiffly in the middle of a student party holding a plastic cup of fruit punch like it was a biohazard sample. "I do not understand the purpose of this gathering," she said over the thump of bass-heavy music and the distant squeals of beer pong victory. "It's a party," Milo replied, handing her a slice of cold pizza. The purpose is not thinking about midterms until they're smothering you like a wet towel of doom. She sniffed the pizza. Is this safe for consumption? Define safe. She arched an eyebrow. That is not encouraging. Milo grinned. Just take a bite and let it change your life. He expected her to decline. Instead, she bit. Her expression remained unchanged for a few seconds, then she nodded. Sodium saturation high. Enzymatic reaction pleasing. I approve. That's the highest compliment I've ever heard about campus pizza. They moved slowly through the crowd. Valira was silent, her silver eyes constantly scanning. The way she observed people made them seem like subjects under a microscope. She didn't speak unless she was documenting behavior. Subject A appears intoxicated but is engaging in rhythmic motion with subject B, this may be a mating ritual. Milo followed her gaze. That's Kyle and Anna. They broke up last week. Reinitiation of pair bonding, then. I think it's more like emotional limbo with a side of tequila. She blinked. Humans are confusing. Tell me about it. Someone bumped into her accidentally and apologized with a wide grin. Valira stared at the guy's face for several seconds before turning back to Milo. Another smile. Yep. That one was social lubricant. Not genuine. Hard to say. Probably not. It's just something we do to avoid awkwardness. Valira looked faintly troubled. Then how do you distinguish? Milo scratched his head. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just guess. Or hope. She looked at the crowd again, slower this time. I was trained in 94 Earth languages. I can interpret emotional inflection across 30 cultures. But I still do not understand why you smiled when I asked that question. Milo's chest tightened. Because you surprised me. That is not a complete answer. No, it's not. He looked away. Sometimes a smile was all you had when your brain short-circuited. It was like a glitch in their emotional code. A flare of vulnerability masked as control. Valira paused near the back door, the music thudding softer here. Sometimes, she said, I think your species is evolved not for logic, but for contradiction. You wouldn't be wrong. Later, as they walked home beneath the soft orange glow of street lamps, Valira slowed beside the campus lake. Her gaze fixed on the rippling water. I observed 43 human smiles tonight, she said. Only 3 appeared genuine. Yours was one. Milo stopped walking. Why does that matter? She looked up at him. Because when you smiled at me, it initiated a response. Something involuntary. Here. She touched her chest lightly. Just above where her heart would be, assuming RN physiology was remotely similar. Her fingers trembled slightly. Just once. I have not experienced that before. Milo stared at her. Every instinct told him to say something clever. Something safe. But instead he just whispered, neither have I. And for a moment, just a breath, he thought she might actually smile. Not a test. Not a mimic. But something real. She didn't. Valira arrived at the tutoring room early. Not on time. Not precisely scheduled. Early. And that alone told Milo something was wrong. She didn't speak as he waved, didn't offer a dry comment about his perpetually messy notes or the flickering light overhead. Instead, she walked with practiced grace to the center of the room, and Saturday her uniform was different, a deeper shade of gray, threaded with faint, iridescent strands that caught the light like starlight trapped in fabric. She carried not her usual tablet, but a narrow dark blue case. Val? Milo asked, setting down his backpack. Did we switch to formal wear and ceremonial props without warning me? She did not smile. Not even her usual almost smile that he'd started learning to recognize. My supervisors are on campus, she said. Milo's hand paused halfway to the chair. Supervisors. As in, alien bureaucrats who think fondness is a virus and hand-holding is high treason. Their evaluation protocols require direct observation. Cool, yeah. Nothing says chill study session like being watched by extraterrestrial judgment incarnate. She tilted her head but said nothing. He didn't get to say more. Two figures stepped through the door with soundless grace, like wind slipping through a crack in the window. They were taller than Valira by at least half a foot, their skin the same icy hue but with darker undertones, like frost layered over stone. Their robes moved as if resisting gravity, silent and layered with shifting patterns that seemed to respond to light or thought. Milo couldn't tell. "This is Milo Cartwright," Valira announced, standing. Her voice was clipped, professional. "My assigned liaison and tutor." "Human male," one of the supervisors murmured, eyes scanning Milo like a barcode. "Subject of cultural entanglement risk." Milo blinked. Don't love that label. Kind of feels like a side effect on experimental medication." They ignored him. Utterly. For the next 35 minutes, Milo sat still while Valira was examined with precision that bordered on cruel. Her academic performance was dissected, her socio-cultural notes questioned. Her emotional baseline was tested through probing inquiries designed to measure deviation. Milo tried a joke about interpreting Shakespeare through memes. Dead silence. He tried defending Valira's impressive adaptability. One of the supervisors merely blinked and adjusted something on their wrist device. "Subject displays irregularities in emotional thresholds," said the taller of the two. "Particularly in presence of the human." Valira's shoulders straightened. "I am following protocol." "Are you?" A pause. Yes, Milo wasn't sure if what he'd planned was technically a date, a diplomatic incident, or a desperate science experiment. Either way, it involved a picnic blanket, two foldable chairs, an awkward playlist of Earth's most earnest love songs, and 3 types of off-brand soda. He had chosen a quiet hill behind the old astronomy tower, a place no one really went except to skip classes or stargaze. It was quiet. Private. Far from watchful supervisors and judgmental dorm windows. The sky above was a velvet gray, stitched with early stars. The grass below was just wet enough to feel real. Valira arrived precisely on time. Of course she did. But this time, she didn't announce herself with a statistic or quote from her observational logs. She simply stood at the edge of the clearing, her silhouette framed by moonlight, eyes sweeping the setup like it was a test she hadn't studied for. "You have placed sustenance on the ground," she said finally. "It's called a picnic," Milo replied. "Humans voluntarily eat outside for some reason. Usually accompanied by ants and existential dread." She walked forward slowly, her gaze flicking to the sodas. "These beverages have excessive sugar content. That's how you know they're good." She crouched gracefully, because of course she did, and examined the pizza slices he'd kept warm in a portable heat pack. "You appear to use carbohydrates as a diplomatic tool." Milo popped open a can. "You say that like it's a bad thing." She accepted the can cautiously, then sat cross-legged on the blanket. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The music playing softly from Milo's speaker buzzed faintly, an acoustic track with lyrics so overly sincere that even he winced. "I downloaded a playlist," he said, trying not to sound defensive. "It's called Songs That Make You Feel Things." Valira tilted her head. "Do they?" He thought about it. "Sometimes. Sometimes they just make things worse." Her expression twitched slightly. Not a smile. Not even amusement. But recognition. "That is an illogical choice." "Yeah. We specialize in those," the message came at dawn. Milo found Valira sitting beneath the sycamore tree near the science building, her posture unusually still, her tablet glowing faintly in her lap. The light was soft and blue, like a calm before a storm. He didn't speak right away. Something about her silence felt sacred. He settled beside her quietly, careful not to touch. She didn't look up, but he saw the message etched in silver glyphs across the tablet screen. "They're recalling you, aren't they?" She nodded once. Immediate extraction. No debrief. No farewell protocols. Milo felt the chill ripple through him. "Are you going to obey it?" "I have no choice," she said. But her voice was not firm. After a breath, she added, "Not without consequence." Milo looked down at the grass, at his own hands clenched in his lap. "Earth's not exactly a utopia, but we have fake passports and underground bunkers. And Chicago-style pizza, which might be worth treason." She turned to look at him. "You use humor to avoid grief." "Constantly. It's how I survived group projects and my parents' divorce." The silence that followed was not awkward. It was deep. The kind of silence that asks for a decision. In her lap, wrapped in a strip of dark fabric, was a slim envelope sealed with the Dominion's insignia. "This is my report," she said. "I must submit it before boarding the shuttle." "What did you write?" "I rewrote it 5 times. The final version is unorthodox." "Define unorthodox." She held the envelope out to him. "It's addressed to you." Milo didn't reach for it at first. But when he did, he held it like something fragile. It was heavier than he expected. "I recorded every instance of your smile," Valira said. "Not for analysis. 4. But she didn't walk away either. 3 months passed. Summer melted into the edges of fall. The campus grew quieter. Seniors graduated. Fresh faces wandered lost through familiar halls. But for Milo, everything felt stalled, like the air had thickened somehow, suspended between memory and movement. Valira was gone. She'd boarded the shuttle with only a glance back, and a smile. Not perfect, not confident. But real. It haunted him. Not because it was final, but because it wasn't. He read her letter dozens of times. Memorized it. Hid it. Read it again. It wasn't long. Only a few pages of shimmering alien script translated into his language, but each word was precise. Measured. Achingly sincere. "Your presence altered my calibration," she had written, "not as a flaw. But as a deviation I chose to preserve." Some nights he dreamt of her. Standing barefoot on that hill. Blinking against the stars like she was trying to understand constellations with her heart instead of her eyes. He still walked by the tree near the science building every morning. Not because he expected her. But because part of him couldn't stop hoping. Milo Cartwright didn't believe in omens. Not officially. But when the sky split open above the campus quad and spilled down light like liquid silver, and a sleek, silent vessel the size of a bus settled above the university fountain, he thought, maybe just this once, the universe was sending a message. Students scattered, phones up. The campus alert system blared something generic about a diplomatic visitation, but Milo knew better. He didn't run toward the ship. He walked. Slowly. Deliberately. Heart hammering in his chest like it remembered something his brain couldn't fully accept. She stepped out of the vessel in a cloak darker than space, marked with symbols he didn't know but recognized. Her hair had changed, longer, unbound. Her eyes were still silver. But they no longer scanned like instruments. They searched. For him. There was no ceremony. No official statement. No recorded transmission of Valira's return. Just 2 shadows beneath the old sycamore tree, standing far too close to be just a memory. Milo had questions. Hundreds. But he asked none. Not when she looked at him like his smile had been her North Star through every recalibration. "I was not permitted," she whispered, "but I came anyway." "They let you go?" "No." That word settled between them, heavier than gravity that he called came at 3:27 a.m. Valira didn't answer it. She didn't need to. She already knew what it would say. Milo found her sitting on the library roof, her back against a vent pipe, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The wind teased strands of her hair across her face, and her eyes held the same quiet as the sky above them, infinite, uncertain, full of possibilities she hadn't dared to name. "They found you," he said. She nodded. "They always would." He sat beside her without asking. "What happens now?" They offered terms. Not peace. Terms. I disappear quietly. Return to Dominion custody. They adjust my programming. Assess me for emotional breach. Milo clenched his jaw. Or. She didn't answer that they met under starlight, not for farewell but for resistance. Milo had expected fear. Maybe hesitation. But when Valira stepped into the clearing outside the city perimeter, where the Dominion retrieval ship waited in silent menace, she did not falter. She reached for his hand. "They will not understand," she said. "They don't have to. We do." His voice was steady. Hers, quieter. Like wind pressed into words. "I am afraid." "Me too. But this time, we choose that together. The Dominion ship didn't leave immediately. It hovered. Watched. Weeks passed. But Valira wasn't taken. Not yet. Instead, the world shifted around them. News of her stay leaked slowly, then suddenly. Interviews were requested, alliances questioned, systems re-evaluated. The Dominion remained silent. But their silence spoke volumes. "They're waiting," Valira said one evening, tracing the rim of her tea mug. "For what?" "To see if we fracture." "We won't." She looked at him. Truly looked, "Then we build." The Dominion ship vanished without a word. No announcement. No judgment. No closure. It simply blinked out of the sky one morning, like it had never been there at all. Was that a retreat? Milo asked. Valira watched the empty sky. Or a pause. Either way, we're still here. From that day forward, they lived out loud. No more hiding. No more coded messages or late-night meetings. They taught. They spoke. They invited. Not everyone understood, but the ones who did mattered more. And one quiet night, at the edge of a field stitched with fireflies, Valira finally smiled. Not because she was trying. Not because she was watched. But because she was free. It began not with treaties or headlines, but with laughter in classrooms. Valira and Milo never set out to lead anything. They shared stories, questions, arguments, and awkward silences. They let students ask anything. They answered with honesty, not certainty. And it changed people. Alien exchange programs multiplied. Schools redesigned their cultural curriculum. Two governments rewrote portions of their language protocols based on a smile that had once meant nothing. "Did you imagine this?" Milo asked one late afternoon as they walked along the old lake path. Valira shook her head. "No, but I hoped." And hoping felt dangerous once. Does it still? It was never about winning. Not really. Milo and Valira had stopped using words like victory long ago. What they lived now was quieter, harder to define. Not a triumph. Not peace. Something more delicate. Like tending a garden on a shifting cliff. On the 10th anniversary of the Exchange Initiative, Valira stood at the podium of the newly founded Interspecies Academy. Her speech was brief. Careful. Her voice still carried that unplaceable cadence of someone who had learned to feel in a language not her own. "Connection," she said, "is a choice we must make every day. Not once. Not perfectly. But with courage." Milo stood at the edge of the crowd, watching her. He no longer tried to memorize her words. He just lived. Themome stories are told in silence. Not absence. Not emptiness. But the kind of silence that holds meaning the way constellations hold ancient maps, shaped by memory, not motion. Valira walked the corridors of the academy late at night, past classrooms still echoing with accents she'd once misunderstood. She paused before a mural painted by students, bright splashes of species, gestures, and colors no rulebook would have ever placed together. But they worked. Somehow, they worked. Milo had fallen asleep on the library couch again, a book on comparative mythology resting on his chest. He said he read it for the students, but she knew he searched for pieces of their story in other worlds. They both did.